Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well informed. Hi, I'm Pat.
And I'm Jesse. It's really good to have you joining us for another journey of discovery.
Today we're taking a deep dive into something, well, it's incredibly universal, but also deeply personal, the whole idea of family.
Yeah, and we're going beyond just, simple definitions. We want to explore the intricate structures, the profound impacts these relationships have, and honestly, some of the incredible stories that really bind us together.
Right. We've pulled together a stack of really thought-provoking sources for this one. Everything from Reddit discussions to serious academic research, even some wisdom from NPR on documenting family history.
Our mission really is to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge to help you understand what family truly means in our pretty complex modern world.
So yeah, get ready for some aha moments, maybe some surprising facts, and perhaps a story or two that hits close to home. Okay, so let's unpack this. When we talk about family, what exactly are we referring to? For a lot of people, the image that probably springs to mind is the nuclear family, mom, dad, kids.
hmm
But our sources suggest this is actually, well, a relatively new concept in the grand scheme of human history.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is just how much the concept of family has evolved and, how it still varies so widely around the world. While that nuclear family model is pretty common, especially in Western nations like the U.S., emphasizing personal autonomy, it's quite a contrast to what we see in many other parts of the world.
Right. And what's on the other side of that coin then?
Well, you look at many Asian, African, and Latin American countries often called collectivist societies, and their family isn't just important, it's really seen as the bedrock of society itself. Decisions are often made with the welfare of the whole group in mind, and loyalty to the entire family unit is, well, paramount. Here, the extended family isn't just like a nice idea, it's a cornerstone,
Hmm.
often involving multiple generations living together or very close by, sharing responsibilities, resources, everything.
That sounds like it could offer a lot of support, that whole it takes a village idea, right? Especially for raising children.
Oh, absolutely. The
No?
sources definitely point to some real benefits there. Extended families can provide a really robust support system for kids, helping ease the financial and time burdens of parenting.
Makes sense.
And they can also create a more inclusive place for family members who might be LGBT plus soul or infertile, asexual, or maybe just don't want children. It offers different ways to have meaningful relationships within that family structure. Elders, for instance, they're often highly respected, and their wisdom is seen as, a valuable resource for everyone.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. But here's where it gets really interesting, because while those benefits sound great, the sources also point to some significant challenges, some complexities within these extended family systems.
That's a really important question, isn't it? Does an extended family system always mean better? And the answer seems to be not necessarily.
Hmm.
Our sources give examples from places like the Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the subcontinent, and China, where these systems can actually be highly patriarchal under what's called a patrilical residence. That's where the woman moves in with her husband's family. She can face, well, the sources say, quadrupled burdens.
Quadrupled burdens. What does that really mean for her? What does that entail?
Well, it means not just the stress of adjusting to a new home, a new family structure, but often a huge increase in domestic work, feeling isolated from her own support network, less power in the household. And unfortunately, this can leave her quite vulnerable to abuse from in-laws, with really very little recourse as an outsider.
Wow. So just where the couple lives makes a huge difference to her experience.
Exactly. In contrast, you have matrilical residences.
Yeah.
That's where the man moves in with the wife's family.
Yeah.
We see this in societies like the Iroquois and Pueblos in the Americas, for example.
Yeah.
And these tend to offer a much better environment for women. They have their own relatives right there for support, for protection.
Right. That makes
The
sense.
sources also highlight that even extended families that seem supportive on the surface, they can still come with strict hierarchies, rigid rules, and even a feeling of being sort of forced to start a relationship with relatives you might not really connect with. And if that's unchecked, it can potentially increase opportunities for abuse too.
Yeah.
So it becomes really clear that, well, as one source puts it, a very bad extended family system is worse than a very good nuclear family system.
So the quality of the relationships, the dynamics, that's
Yeah.
really key.
Absolutely. Paramount.
It really sounds like there's no single perfect model then. And of course, today we see even more variations. Things like single parent families, blended families, they're becoming increasingly common.
That's right. Single-parent families, whether they come about through divorce or a choice to raise children independently, they can face significant financial and emotional challenges, definitely. But they also often foster incredibly strong bonds and, real resilience within that unit.
Mm-hmm.
And with divorce rates being what they are, blended families where two families come together, often with kids from previous relationships, well, they bring their own unique dynamics and complexities too.
So, okay, for someone navigating a blended family situation, what kind of practical tips or insights do our sources offer?
I think the big theme is patience. Patience and establishing consistency.
Yep.
Kids really thrive on structure, and that becomes even more important when you've got maybe different parenting styles involved.
Yeah.
Some tips include things like defining ground rules early on, but also letting those step-parent relationships develop naturally. Not pushing for instant closeness. Staying consistent in your presence matters more than just trying to assert authority right away.
That's interesting. Presence over authority.
Exactly. Establishing new traditions, things that are unique to this blended family. Fostering unity through shared activities. Respecting each other's differences. And crucially, communicating openly.
Yeah, communication always seems key.
Always. And maybe most importantly, creating a strong support system outside the immediate family. Reaching out to family, friends, maybe joining support groups, or even seeking professional counseling, that can be vital.
So it's a process.
It's definitely a gradual process, building trust over time. And remembering that a step-parent's consistent presence often matters more than their title.
This leads us nicely into the next big area. What does all this mean for our individual well-being? It turns out family relationships play a really central and often complex role across our entire lives.
Oh, indeed. Family relationships are just so significant for well-being, and they tend to become even more crucial as people age, and maybe needs for caregiving increase. On the positive side, these relationships provide really valuable resources. They help us cope with stress, engage in healthier behaviors, enhance our self-esteem.
But there's a flip side too, isn't there? A more challenging side.
Absolutely. Poor relationship quality,
Yeah.
intense caregiving responsibilities for family members, and marital dissolution, like divorce. These are all significant stressors that can really take a toll on an individual's well-being.
Our sources really dug into the consequences of family breakdown, particularly divorce, and while it paints a pretty stark picture for both children and adults.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture. While every child, every family is unique, of course, research does highlight some concerning trends. Divorce has been shown to diminish a child's future competence across a range of areas. Things like their own future family relationships, education, emotional well-being, even their future earning potential.
Wow, that's a heavy impact. What are some of those specific consequences for children that the research points to?
Well, for children, the impact often starts with economic insecurity. Custodial mothers, for example, often lose a significant portion of their income post-divorce. And children from single-mother households are much more likely to live in poverty and experience less upward financial mobility later on.
Okay, so the economic piece is significant.
Very. And then there's emotional insecurity. Relationships with both parents can weaken. Children might find it harder to trust, particularly their fathers in some studies. Research has shown a higher risk of emotional distress, serious psychiatric disorders, even suicide attempts, and alcohol addiction among children growing up with single parents.
That's really worrying.
It is. They may also show increased approval of things like premarital sex, cohabitation, and divorce themselves, and perhaps be less likely to view marriage as a permanent commitment.
So it affects their views on relationships later.
It seems so. Additionally, there can be a loss of religious faith and practice, and even lower academic achievement, potentially due to less language stimulation at home. And, alarmingly, children living with single parents are also shown to be at a higher risk of abuse or neglect.
That's a lot of potential negative impacts. What about the adults, the parents themselves, after a divorce?
Yeah, for the parents, the long-term emotional effects can be really significant too. Studies show that even years after a divorce, many individuals still feel anger towards their former spouses, and a considerable number feel that life is, unfair and disappointing. In one study, only about 10% of divorcing partners felt they actually achieved happier lives afterwards, and a quarter of older divorced men remained isolated and lonely years later.
It's so clear that family relationships are incredibly powerful, both in their positive potential and, well, their negative aspects too. But turning back to the positive side for a moment, our sources also highlight some significant benefits associated with stable structures, particularly marriage.
That's right. Research does indicate, for example, that married men tend to live longer and earn higher incomes.
Interesting.
And married women, when compared to divorced or separated women, tend to experience less intimate partner violence. And maybe something less obvious, married individuals generally seem to be more involved in their communities, showing greater civic responsibility, volunteering more, participating in schools and churches, things like that.
So potential benefits not just for the individuals, but for the wider community too.
Exactly. It suggests a broader societal benefit from stable family units.
Okay, so beyond the structures and the impacts, family is also fundamentally the vessel for our collective stories, our narratives. Why is documenting these stories considered so crucial?
It's such an important question. Why do we invest so much in understanding and preserving family narratives? As the author and activist James Baldwin once said, history lives within us. Learning the stories of those closest to us, it helps us not only understand the path their lives took, but also make sense of our own lives, our own journey. It can create these really powerful full-circle moments. Like the example shared as Kim Hawley. She discovered her father's past struggles with postpartum anxiety, and that directly influenced the amazing counsel he gave her when she faced similar struggles.
Wow, that's incredible. So these stories offer real context and connection. So how do we actually capture these invaluable stories? It sounds like maybe it doesn't have to be super complicated or intimidating.
No, definitely not. Simplicity is really key here. You don't need fancy equipment. Your smartphone, the recording app on it, that works perfectly well.
Okay.
Find a quiet space, put the phone sort of between you and the person you're interviewing, and plan for at least, say, 30 minutes. That gives you time to get comfortable and really explore the topic. But most importantly, if you're approaching sensitive topics, do it with real care. Give advance notice. Let them know they can opt out if they want to. Go slow. And allow for those sometimes slightly awkward pauses. Don't feel like you have to step on the silence. Because that's often where the magic happens, right? When people access memories they haven't thought about in maybe decades.
Let the silence breathe.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is just the emphasis on seizing the opportunity. Document these stories while you can.
And these stories, they can range from the really deeply profound to the, well, hilariously memorable. Our sources shared some absolute gems that are just unforgettable. I love the one about the grandfather who got bitten by a Sydney funnel web spider. This was before anti-venom was common.
Oh, wow.
So his coworkers bundled him into a car, racing to the hospital. They get pulled over for speeding. And the passenger just holds up this jar with the actual spider in it, points to the grandfather's bandaged hand. Apparently, the cop's eyes just went wide, and he immediately gave them a police escort all the way to Sydney.
No way.
Yeah. The family still laughs that the fastest the driver ever went in his life was chasing a police car.
That is brilliant. And then there's that fantastic tale from a rural town, where they had shared telephone party lines. And there was this notoriously nosy old woman named Murdy who was always listening in on calls. So one time, someone's great-grandmother, knowing Murdy was eavesdropping, she apparently stood on a chair, put her backside right up to the microphone, ripped let's just say an audible fart, and then just said, clear as day, smell that, Murdy.
Oh, my goodness.
That's a story that has apparently been passed down for generations with absolute glee.
These personal stories are just fantastic, and they often bump up against or intertwine with the more formal structures that govern family life.
That's a great point. And that's really where family law comes into the picture.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these personal anecdotes often interact with those formal systems. Family law covers all the things you might expect, like divorce, separation, child custody, child support, which obviously reflect the changing demographics of families today. But it also extends into areas that might be less obvious, like grandparents or maybe older siblings seeking custody of a child, or prenuptial agreements. It also covers really important LGBTQIA+ family rights, including parental rights, name changes, estate planning, especially around guardianship for children, immigration issues where family status is linked to citizenship, and even things like restraining orders for protection.
It really illustrates just how deeply our personal family lives are woven into these broader legal and societal frameworks. Wow, we've covered a lot today. A real deep dive into the multifaceted world of family, exploring its changing structures, its really profound impact on our well-being, and those incredible stories that knit us together.
And this raises, I think, an important question for you, our listener. What stories are living inside you, waiting to be shared? And what new understanding might they unlock about your own journey, or maybe the journey of those around you? Think about those moments, big or small, that really define your family's unique narrative.
I'm Pat.
And I'm Jesse.
We really want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found this as insightful and thought-provoking as we did.
We genuinely love exploring these topics with you, so please, if you enjoyed this deep dive, like it, share it, maybe leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe even some of your own family stories.
Definitely. Until then, take care, keep learning, and come back next time for another deep dive.